The East Midlands plays host to some of the most beautiful natural scenery England has to offer. Tons of history and some popular historical characters, and some less popular ones. But some of it is a real dump. This is part one of the worst places in the East Midlands. Number 20, Mablethorpe. You've probably never heard of Mablethorpe. What even is a Mablethorpe? Well, Mablethorpe is a pretty isolated little holiday village on the east coast between Skegness and Cleethorpes. The name sounds quaint, and indeed it is quite a quaint little place. Here's what I'd read about it prior to visiting. On a recent terrible trip to the Lincolnshire town of Mablethorpe, I was horrified at the downtrodden class of trollops that are attracted to the town. I discovered a large proportion of sinkhole estate vest-wearing, roll-up smoking, tattooed, unemployable, empty heads who were swearing their heads off at every opportunity. Flatulence was the main mode of communication. They were sitting outside some pub who was advertising an egg and bacon fry-up with a pint at 10 AM in the morning for £4.50. I mean, who the hell does that? There were dossers and drunks and vacant-faced simpletons everywhere, along with an array of fake war veterans and their emaciated dogs. Sounds like hell, doesn't it? So imagine my surprise when I found it to have a beautiful beach and a nice relaxed vibe to it, especially in comparison to the aforementioned Skegness and Cleethorpes. It even has a seal sanctuary. Alright, so it doesn't have fancy restaurants and wine bars, but this is Lincolnshire, miles away from blooming anywhere. I mean, I'm not sure what this person was expecting, but he or she sounds like a massive snob and should probably spend a bit more money and go to Tuscany next time. It's a quintessential small seaside resort and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Well, apart from it being bloody miles away from anywhere and not having any railway station to get there. But that might be a blessing for the people that live there, as it keeps it nice and quiet. Including the village to the south, Sutton-by-Sea, the population of Mablethorpe is about 13,000. Every summer there's an illumination ceremony where a celebrity turns on the lights. Previous years have seen Barbara Windsor, Timmy Mallet and Wolf from the Gladiators do the grand switch on. It's a peaceful little village and that's probably the way the locals like it. Number 19, Chesterfield. Another town where what people had said online didn't match up with reality. If you were to believe what some people say, it's a rundown dump with feral teenagers dressed in hood-rich sweaters looking to find old grannies to rob of their pension to buy crack with. Well, while there are a few boarded up shops here and there, as a general rule, the buildings are quite nice. The most famous being the crooked spire atop the Chesterfield Parish Church. This is the symbol of the town and even features on the football team's badge. I was in Chesterfield on a Sunday afternoon, so it was pretty quiet. I can't say whether or not it's always like that. Maybe someone can let me know in the comments. One word of warning I would like to give anyone visiting Chesterfield: the travel agents in Chesterfield are to be avoided. Look at this, £636 for a week in Eastbourne. Are you mad? Chesterfield is close to both Sheffield and Derby, so it goes under the radar a little bit, but it has some nice shopping areas. And a pink dog. It's a market town too, but I was there too late in the day for that. The marketplace is being done up, so I also can't comment on that, except to say that the architecture on the perimeter of the market square was pretty pleasant. Like York, Chesterfield has its own version of the shambles, and it's genuinely a delight to walk around, unless you like peeing in the street. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I reckon whoever decided to moan about Chesterfield and put it online was someone trying to keep others from coming to the town and seeing how nice it is. Well, too late Chesterfield, the cat's out of the bag. Alright, so there's the odd brutal rough cast building and cracked windows on a shut down pub, but on the whole it's a cracking little town of about 77,000 souls. You've got theatres, you've got pubs, and you've even got porticos. The residential areas are pretty quiet, and if you need to escape, well, the Peak District is nearby. It was a little bit grim the following morning in some of the streets, but overall I quite like Chesterfield. Number 18, Grantham. Famous for being the birthplace of Margaret Thatcher and, well, not much else really. Grantham is a friendly place, see what I mean? With a population of around 45,000. I'd read that there was high inequality here, with very affluent folk alongside some of the most deprived in Britain. Well, my first impressions walking along the Westgate were that it seemed a pleasant place with tea shops, delicatessens and art galleries, with only one or two closed down shops. Unfortunately, however, the George shopping centre didn't seem to be faring quite as well. Westgate Lads Club sounded quite interesting, and this is the marketplace, Grantham being a medieval market town. It's all very nice, isn't it? Recently the Telegraph named Grantham as one of the most boring towns in Britain, a reputation it's had since around 1980 when the BBC Radio 1 survey named it the most boring in the country. Now I've got a theory behind this. As mentioned before, the town is the birthplace of the Iron Lady, Baroness Thatcher. As a matter of fact, I'll show you her birthplace right here above the shop. And, well, Maggie the Milk Snatcher, as some may call her, was as polarising back then as she is today. I can only assume, therefore, that people with a grudge against Thatcher back in 1980 have taken it out on Grantham, and the label has stuck ever since. There's some nice riverside walks, and it's all quite pleasant, really. I mean, there's more boring towns than Grantham, like Stevenage or, I don't know, Basingstoke come to mind. This housing estate was about as edgy as it got, just outside the town centre. Isaac Newton went to school locally and had a shopping centre named after him. I'm pleased to say that when I went into the shopping centre, no apples fell on my head. The mathematician and scientist also has a statue on the main road leading through town, as does the Baroness. Google reviews of the statue divide opinion. One reviewer states, "But Mrs. T, no matter how divisive, was and remains one of the most important PMs this country ever had. She certainly makes the wet Nelly since look over-promoted incompetence." Another reviewer comments, "It's a public toilet, but there's nowhere to wash your hands. I was told it was because of cuts, but that sounds like loony left talk to me." The cultural quarter here contains an art centre, cinema, theatre, council offices and Wetherspoons. Grantham also claims to have Britain's oldest inn, the Angel and Royal. Very nice to look too, although way out of my price range. There was one more statue in the town, and that was Grantham politician Right Honourable Frederick Tollem. This one on here, and instead of being used as a local toilet, he has his name on the local Wetherspoons. What an honour. Grantham is a nice little town, even if it did smell a bit like urine around one of the statues. I can't remember which one it was now. Number 17, Nottingham. So we've gone from the milk snatcher to the man who stole from the rich to give to the poor. This is one place that definitely can't be accused of being boring. Actually, it's probably in my top 10 of cities in the UK, even if it does have a bit of an edgy side to it. According to some estimations, Nottingham is the 5th most dangerous city in the UK, and about 20 years ago things got so bad it was dubbed Shottingham, as rival gang members vied for control of the city. That was a time of crooked cops, drug barons, and according to some sources, even the SAS were brought in to help end the turf war. Thankfully, it's chilled out a lot since then, so let's have a look around the city. Well, the city centre has just about everything you could want, really. Every type of food, all the shopping you need, and the nightlife is great. Well, at least it was when I last sampled it, which was a few years back in the good old days when hangovers used to last a few hours and not a few days. It's easy enough to get about on the tram or the bus or from the one railway station. Not entirely sure what happened here, but it's evidently a crime scene, and this cat is probably wondering why it lives on Spaniel Row of all places. So Nottingham is a fairly big city of around a third of a million in the centre, and in the urban area about 920,000. It's pretty densely populated in the city centre, which often means there is some mess. Nottingham's history can be traced back to at least 919, when Edward the Elder captured Nottingham. A castle was later built by William the Conqueror, and centuries later the castle staged a showdown between the Sheriff of Nottingham and Richard the Lionheart. Whether or not Kevin Costner was there butchering the English accent is unconfirmed. Side note, the castle here is not the original castle, that's more like a house on the hill. Like Grantham, Nottingham claims to host the oldest inn in the country, Ye Olde Trip to Jerusalem. A nice contrast here between the castle and the whatever this is. And a nice brutalist car park. Nottingham certainly isn't without its urban decay, but the Victorian buildings that are there are still looking pretty good. And the modern buildings, well, they look modern. Nottingham is very well located for transport. You can take the train directly to most large cities in England, plus Cardiff in Wales. Or you could travel in style like these show-offs. As we head to the south of the city, there are several sporting venues all huddled together. This is Meadow Lane, the home of Notts County, the oldest professional football team in the whole world, currently playing in the 4th tier of English football. And just across the River Trent is Nottingham Forest, who have won the European Cup twice, and currently, after a long absence, are doing very well in the Premier League, recently returning to European competition for the first time in over 30 years. And their legendary former manager is Brian Clough. And just around the corner again is Trent Bridge, an iconic cricket ground with friendly security who didn't even get funny with me when I said I don't really like cricket. Maybe he was expecting me to say, I love it. Nottingham's ice hockey team back in the city centre is called the Panthers, and they play in the top division of British ice hockey. Nottingham isn't a fun place to be a motorist. There's lots of one-way systems and congestion. Nottingham is a uni city. All the students here on the other side of the canal were heading to some kind of festival, and there's street art everywhere in the city centre now. There's also the annoying delivery men on their e-bikes everywhere now. The city centre is very developed, but some of the outskirts are still a bit dilapidated. I stayed in Nottingham for a couple of days, and the second day the sun came out and it looked really good. Nottingham has a distinct dialect and some insults that only people from Nottingham use, so I'm going to try to relay some of these onto you. So Wazzock is an annoying person, a nebber is a nosy person, or just nosy. Fosneck is a know-it-all, and I'm not sure why, but I quite like filming these trams. Yeah, I know, nerd alert. Oh, what's this? Another oldest pub. I'm starting to feel a bit dubious about all these claims now. The National Justice Museum is a popular attraction. Let's see if we can eavesdrop on this tour. I don't know, something about revenge? Maybe they've been lied to about a pub they were in being the oldest one in the country. Surprisingly, next to all of this was a completely empty building. This old church is now a Pitcher and Piano. For those of you that aren't from Britain, a Pitcher and Piano is a franchise of bars here in the UK that don't have pianos in them, or indeed play piano music. Nobody questions this, it's just the way we do things, okay? The Nottingham Contemporary Art Gallery has artistically backwards writing and a facade of verdigris scalloped panels. On this wall is a bird. Some more post-industrial buildings, some more street art. Some buildings being pulled down, someone about to get nicked. Well, they would be if the police officer could actually drive properly. Bloody hell, mate, where did you do your test? Oh, he's looking at me. Just pretend I'm filming the tram. That's right, officer. I love filming trams. I've got a whole load of tram footage here, honest. Nice building behind us here. And, oh, look, 2 trams. Tram spam. Wham bam, thank you, ma'am. Nottingham, the city of rebels. Well, I'm not surprised when I see how badly the police drive. Something is very aesthetically pleasing about the Roundhouse Theatre here. It almost looks like one of those helter-skelter car parks. This vintage shop had some cheeky Top of the Pops albums on sale. Now, I never knew that Top of the Pops had hotties on the cover. I've never heard of any of these songs on here, but I'm tempted to buy a record for research purposes. The voluntary police were out in force. I did try to tell them that I was only filming trams, but all they did was give me a weird look. So I thought it was best to just get out of Nottingham and get the next train. Let's go. Number 16, Skegness. Good old Skeggy. This town has been voted the worst seaside resort in the country on more than one occasion. Well, I'm here to tell you that whoever said that is talking out of their backsides. So Skeggy, or Skeg Vegas as some like to call it, is bloody miles away from everywhere. Right along the end of the line from Nottingham, in fact. They say Britain is full. I say take a drive to Skeggy. It's a different world out here. Like most seaside places, it was quiet until they built a railway station and the Victorian city hordes came flocking from their overcrowded, overpolluted lives to descend on the sea air. The slogan for Skegness is so bracing. That's originally from 1908, but in this day of low-cost flights, I'm not sure bracing is exactly what the populace is looking for. Skeggy was the first town in Britain to get a Butlins holiday camp in 1936. The town has a population of around 22,000 and receives over 1 million visitors per year. With the decline of British seaside tourism, Skegness has, like most places, suffered despite having many loyal visitors coming each year. It's a town that is 98% white and working class, so expect plenty of fish, bacon, sausages, pies and chips, and forget about your avocados, your poke bowls and sushi. Probably the main landmark in town is the Jubilee Clock Tower and the statue of the Jolly Fisherman. I'm not going to bore you now by showing you all the amusements. It's the usual stuff and plenty of it, but I will mention the beach, and the beach was fantastic. Golden sands, but admittedly very bracing. It wasn't cold, it was just windy. There's just one wooden pier, which is pretty basic really. There's no chance of you fishing from it because it doesn't actually reach the sea. There's an information board here on a Skegness Pier wind turbine, which that should be there, but it's not. Maybe it blew away. The usual hotels are present by the boating lake. I actually saw some cheeky monkey camping by this no camping sign. For some reason there's a fake castle here. There's also a seal sanctuary, which is very cool. Again, like Mablethorpe, I think it's just snobbery that people punch down on places like Skeggy. It's an easy target, but you know what? I bet the people in Skeggy have more of a laugh on holiday than the snobs who vote in these polls. They're probably out there pretending to like €200 bottles of Pinot Blanc in Saint-Tropez while quaffing a lobster that's just been boiled alive. Give me £3 pints and pack of scampi fries and karaoke with Big Dave any day. It's not even as old-fashioned as you'd expect. I mean, look at this theatre, for example, and the cinema and the bars all look quite modern and quite clean and decent. Anyway, Skeggy, To use a tired cliche, it is what it says on the tin. It's a working man or working woman's holiday where you can get a banging roast dinner for a tenner. Count me in. Number 15 is Barton-upon-Humber. Now, Barton is a nice town and it shouldn't be on this list, but there is a story as to how it ended up on here. You see, I was in Hull a few years back and had a few hours to kill, and I mentioned to the hotel receptionist that I wanted to cross the Humber Bridge. "What do you want to do that for?" he asked. "Well, I thought it'd be a pretty interesting thing to do," I replied. "And then I'll have lunch in Barton and come back." "Oh, you don't want to go there," he said. "Why not?" "Oh, there's nothing there, it's a dump." So I ended up walking over the bridge anyway, but I came straight back without even looking at Barton. And now here I am, ready to see what it's really like. Well, long story short, what that receptionist in Hull said was complete and utter bollocks. Even the ducks feel safe walking their ducklings along the street in Barton. Sitting on the southern banks of the Humber estuary with a population of around 12,000, Barton is a quiet, pleasant town. It's a bit cut off from the world. With only a branch line going to Cleethorpes, some buses going to Scunthorpe, Grimsby and Hull, what I like about Barton is that it doesn't feel overly commercial. Sure, there's a few boarded up places and the odd bit of crappy graffiti, but there are loads of independent stores and boozers. But there was one thing that spooked me. That's George Michael in there. That's a life-size cardboard cutout of George Michael. It's listed on Google Maps as the George Michael house. So that person has got a life-size cutout of the deceased George Michael, put it in their window and advertised it on Google Maps as the George Michael house. It's kind of creepy. Creepy pop star cutouts aside, Barton is a genuine pleasure to walk around. It's nice just not having your eyes assaulted by facades of betting shops and barbers and nail bars. Barton is a rare oasis compared to some of the towns coming up later in this list. Number 14 is Leicester. Another large city with a population of approaching 600,000 in its urban area. Leicester is famous for its rugby and football teams, Walker's Crisps, the resting place of Richard III, Gary Lineker, David and Richard Attenborough, Kasabian, and being one of the most diverse places in the country. It was my first time in Leicester, so I was looking forward to seeing what it was all about. Well, I arrived on a Saturday afternoon and let me tell you, it was colourful, it was vibrant and it was busy. Like every big city, there were murals, street art and trash. The city centre has a few boarded up shops, but the shopping centre seemed to be doing very well. Leicester is one of the fastest growing cities in the UK and its demographic makeup is roughly 40% white, 44% Asian, 8% black, and with the rest mixed or other races, making it one of the most diverse cities in Britain alongside London and Birmingham. Top tip for you, if you want cheap fruit then the market is the place to go.
Blue ball 150. 50. Yeah, there you are.
This street is called New Walk, a pedestrian-only promenade in the city centre, laid out along an old Roman track in the year 1785. It's a nice place to stroll along, connecting bars, churches, parks, and unfortunately this monstrosity, which completely ruins it, the IBM building. I mean, what were they thinking? Sorry, but even a museum, art gallery, parks and statues can't save you now. Leicester is a famous sporting city. I took a walk through Nelson Mandela Park to Welford Road. This isn't manufactured crowd noise, by the way. Leicester Tigers rugby union team were playing at the time. Leicester Tigers are the most successful rugby union side in England, and just around the corner from there a cricket match was being played, but it was starting to rain, so I'm not sure how much longer they played for. And not far at all from there was Leicester City's King Power Stadium. Now, Leicester City were part of possibly the most famous underdog story in football when they won the Premier League in 2016 against bookmakers' odds of 5,000 to 1 before the season started. They've just been relegated in 2025 to the Championship, the second tier of English football. To be honest, this part of town is as dull as the weather. I headed straight back up into town, and along the way I found a rather random miniature Statue of Liberty. Yeah, so it's not quite Liberty Island, but the canal still looks alright. There was some kind of event going on, and in true British defiant fashion, despite the rain, people were enjoying themselves. They were even bloody kayaking in the rain. Well, I suppose if you fall in, it's not like you're going to get any wetter, is it? Leicester is a big university city. The De Montfort University looked super modern. And Leicester has tons of history as well. This medieval arch coming up here is the Magazine Gateway. Leicester Castle was built shortly after the Norman Conquest, and it's very impressive and mostly free to just walk in and wander around. Now, I have to confess to being completely ignorant to all of this before I visited, and this just shows how much visiting a city can surprise you and how many layers of history we have in Britain. Between the castle and the river is Castle Park. So we head back into the urban sprawl then, and the old buildings mixed with the new ones pretty inoffensively, I thought. This modern area was possibly the most futuristic that I've seen in Britain. It's like something out of Blade Runner. Leicester is a relatively safe city for its size, and despite the awful weather, you can see it's absolutely buzzing. Sure, it's not perfect, but what city is? I did want to visit a rougher area of the city like St Matthew's, but by this point the rain was absolutely atrocious, so I had to give up filming for the day. The next morning the weather was much better. There were less people about. Obviously it was a Sunday morning. Bit of rubbish there, fly tipping. I don't know where the mattress came from. Bit of modernist architecture shining in the sunlight. And look at this, a nice helter-skelter car park, my favourites. And and another one, what a treat. This helter-skelter car park has got windows on the top. What a bonus, look at that, beautiful. Well, that's it for Leicester. It's a pretty decent city. Number 13, Immingham. Now, most of you will be saying, where? And those of you that know Immingham will be saying, why? Well, the answer to the first question is northeast Lincolnshire, about 6 miles northwest of Grimsby. And the second question, well, I was driving around the area one day a couple of years ago with my buddy Joe, who'll be watching, and it looked like a massive industrial area out on the arse end of nowhere. Well, it kind of is that. As a matter of fact, it has the busiest cargo port in the UK, but the town itself is small with a population of around 12,000, and it's quite nice. The worst thing I could say about it is that there was a little bit of litter, an abandoned shopping trolley in a hedge, and a bit of scrubbed out graffiti. The shopping area and the retail park is very 60s, but you know, it's enough for a small town. I was quite surprised to see the Christmas decorations up on the wall of the library, bearing in mind that this is June. I mean, the library of all places should be keeping up with dates and stuff, otherwise how are they going to know if people are bringing their books back on time? A little bit of history for you. So in 1608, Puritans en route to the Netherlands had to dock in Immingham due to poor weather. The women of the boats were initially allowed to stay in the village, but they were then arrested. The villagers protested this, and the women were eventually freed and allowed to continue on to the Netherlands. Some of these folk would later go on to be the Pilgrim Fathers of America, hence the road names Mayflower Avenue, Pilgrim Avenue, the Mayflower Pub, Pilgrim Trail walking route, and a stone in Pilgrim Park which comes from the original Plymouth Rock in Massachusetts. So essentially, I guess Immingham is most famous for lots of cargo coming in on boats and lots of people leaving on boats. Immingham isn't a bad place at all. It's very green, very clean, very quiet, and it was very colourful, lots of flowers on display, and it's also bloody cheap to live in. Number 12, Derby. Derby, where they love rams. No, seriously, they've got 2 statues of rams within 5 minutes of each other, plus the football team's nickname is the Rams. It's apparently due to an old folk song. They've even got a ram here in a crazy golf place that's dubiously named Glory Holes. And now we've got House of Holes. What is it with Derby and rams and holes? I'm guessing the lingerie room shut down because the locals are more into rams. Anyways, it was 10 a.m. on a Sunday and it was pretty dead, so I went for a walk along the river, which was also pretty dead. I was headed for Pride Park, the home ground of Derby County. And there's not much to see really, a standard sort of out-of-town bowl, strangely with a Greggs attached to it. Like in Nottingham, Brian Clough is revered here, having led them to their first league title alongside assistant Peter Taylor. This is the Derby Arena, which to me looks like a motorcyclist crash helmet, which kind of makes sense as it's a velodrome as well as an events venue. So I headed back to town, past the one main railway station and the funky yellow taxis. I managed to avoid going to see Mr. Booze, and there's something about this city, it must be sponsored by Coldplay because it was all yellow. Derby does have some fine buildings, and this road is called Lara Croft Way, as the video game creator Core Design, who created the Tomb Raider franchise, were based right here in Derby. I Want to Page is one of the more bizarre things I've seen graffitied. It's not 1998 anymore, mate. We don't do paging anymore. Go play Tomb Raider or something. So we're back at the House of Holes again, and it actually used to be the Grand Theatre, which shows how far we've fallen as a society. And nothing ever happens in this closed down shop. So, Derby has a population of around 270,000, so it's not as big as Nottingham or Leicester, and I know this was a Sunday, but as I was walking around I couldn't help thinking to myself, where are all the people? I looked it up later and apparently it's quiet all the time. I don't know why. Maybe someone from Derby is watching and can let me know in the comments. Now here's something that made me sad. So this was the Lord Nelson pub, and what looked like a fine looking boozer, but it's now Burger Boy. California dreaming. A Californian dream in every bite. Now people are concerned about the loss of British culture, and rightly so, but it seems this American fast food crap just goes under the radar for some reason. Just to show you how empty the city is, we're going for a little walk here. So this is in the city centre, and some very fine streets. It's on double speed, so you don't get too bored. Pretty darn quiet. Alright, so there's a few people, but really not very many. Oops, somebody's really messed up that window. Surely this could house the homeless. Could do, could do. This is the Derby Marketplace, which is meant to be the focal point for the city. The Assembly Rooms theatre behind it is closed permanently, and apparently the whole place is going to be revamped. So apparently it's going to go from this as it is now to this. We're on the up Midduck, just north of the river, and I felt like I walked into a post-apocalyptic wasteland. This is literally across the river from the market square, the supposed beating heart of the city. Now crossing back into the centre, and this is the best part of Derby. The best thing about it, what used to be the silk mill, it's considered to be the very first modern industrial factory. Built in 1721, and it pretty much brought about the Industrial Revolution. It's free to enter, the staff are super friendly, and the exhibits are all well worth a look. Just make sure you follow the rules. Rolls-Royce are based in Derby, and they employ around 12,000 people. I guess one of the customers at Nosh Express wasn't happy with the nosh they received. So Derby is not a bad city, it's certainly not the worst I've seen, but it is lacking in atmosphere a bit. Number 11, Northampton. There are places and people and even TV series in this world that grow on you. The more you get to know them, the more you like them. Northampton, for me, had the opposite effect. I liked the town when I arrived, I thought it was pretty nice. Well, you'll soon see why all of that changed. It was mid-morning on a Saturday, the weather was good and all seemed right with the world. Northampton Market Square seemed pretty nice and most of the stalls were busy. This square is over 800 years old and was reopened after redevelopment in 2024. It was nice to see a local building supporting the Northampton Town Football Club, Northampton Saints Rugby Club and others. Other splendid buildings in the town centre are the All Saints Church, the Grand Cafe and the Guildhall, amongst others. Very nice. The Guildhall's worth another look. There's loads of shops in the town, including stuff like Rolex dealers and jewellers. Let's just hope nobody puts their windows through. The very town centre is nicer than most, with theatres, museums and other cultural places. They had a fun exhibition going on in the museum, the worst album covers of all time. If I had to pick one off this display, I'd go for whatever the hell this thing is. Yes, Northampton seemed quite right in the town centre, but what about the outskirts then? Well, there's a nice big park and the River Nene. And well, yeah, a few grotty bits, and then there was this bizarre looking Chinese restaurant which is now closed down. They brew Carlsberg here in Northampton, and also this ale which I'm not sure is even real, to be honest. There seems to be a lot of building work going on in the town, but you can't complain because at least it seems like it's getting done. Well, if we take Market Square as an example anyway. Got some nasty spikes here to discourage beggars. So by this point now I've walked around for a while and Northampton just looks average. A big town, one of England's biggest towns in fact, with a population of over 250,000, with all the same shops as everywhere else, laid out in the same way. This arcade was absolutely rubbish, as virtually nothing open. And this shopping centre was okay, it's nothing remarkable. It was on the other side of the shopping centre where things got interesting, and I mean interesting, I really mean ugly. Northampton suddenly turned into Chernobyl. This absolute beast of a tower block is Northampton House. I went to check out the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is over 1,000 years old, but the gate was shut and they have broken glass so you can't even climb the wall. And pretty soon afterwards it became clear why. So these are the community halls of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and it's clear that they've just sort of scribbled on the walls here, but it gets a lot worse than that. So there's this house across the road, someone's scribbled on that as well, but it gets much worse than that. Just stay with me. Yeah, more scribbling on the house. It gets worse when we get around the corner. So the ex-servicemen's club was set alight on the 30th of March. Thankfully nobody was hurt. That was suspected arson, but nobody's been nicked for it yet, and now the building is set for demolition. So as you can see, it's pretty much that whole row of buildings is absolutely gutted. It's a miracle that nobody was hurt in that, to be honest. So I went back into the town and reflected on just how nice Northampton had seemed at first, and how nice it actually wasn't. And surely this chair is a trap. Anyway, that's it for part one. These towns and cities really haven't been that bad, I don't think. But we've got much, much worse to come in part two. So make sure you subscribe for that one to make sure you get notified, and I'll see you next time.